Exercise is not a weight loss program. Cardio is not necessary for fat loss. Carbs are not the enemy.
One of the best ways to improve your hip mobility that doesn't require stretching, get up off your ass and walk around.
There is no magical fat burning zone, only poor habits and a poor diet.
What is golf fitness? It is a program designed to make your body better at the game of golf. Squat, deadlift, press, pull, and rotate. This will make you better at golf. It'll make you better in all aspects of your life.
Welcome to the Shoot It Straight podcast.
Welcome.
My name is Erika Wescott, nutrition coach and fitness expert.
I'm Cody Wescott, golf fitness expert.
That was good.
Yeah, it was good.
That's a good intro.
Now they know who we are.
We are married too, in case anybody was wondering. We don't accidentally have the same last name.
You're a dork. And that's Squat Wescott. He'll be in the. If you're watching, he'll be on here soon. Hopefully you won't hear him.
Yeah, we try our best. We got headphones on, but sometimes he does like to interject, and we let him.
Mm-hmm.
He's in that phase.
You might have a lot to say. It's been a very exciting week in the world of golf.
It's been a very exciting week. It's like the Masters, but like better. I mean,
it's not better.
It's different. It's
Masters
like,
is way better. Any major is way better.
It's historical though. In sports, it's
wild.
It's a historical, and we still. I mean, it's so new that there's still so much up in the air that.
I just saw a thing come out today about how the current PGA Tour members and the ones that stuck around are supposed to get like equity or something, some kind of like say in this new company, and where like the live guys are not, and they're actually going to be punished. So I don't know what that means, but and then it sounds like as this new company continues to grow, so will their I don't know how equity works, but so will the value of their share of this new company is going to grow, and the live guys are like going to be on the outside looking into this. So
they get nothing ever.
We
don't know. This is all speculative.
It's also it's crazy, but one of the head guys said this. His name's Larry Dunn or something like that. I don't know exactly who he is. I think he's one of the board members or whatever. But everyone was talking about how the PGA Tour guys were like really getting screwed on this because they didn't go take the big contracts, and now the live guys are coming back. But it looks like that they have some stipulation in there that these guys are going to be made whole. So who knows how it's all going to shake out? Like I'd imagine at the end of the day, it's like they're probably all going to end up about the same. The guys who were going to have money coming to them are going to get something out of it, I assume.
I'm assuming that punished is not the correct word, and that sounds like a media term that they want people to click on their article.
Maybe. I clicked on it.
Right.
But I mean, I don't know. I do think that they've got to. I mean, we don't live in a fair society. The world is not fair, but I think in their sport, like they're probably going to make it pretty even for what the live guys got and what these guys are going to. I mean, and not all of them are like, if you're like a rank and file PGA Tour member, like you weren't getting big offers anyways.
Right.
It's like the Will Zalatoris, the John Rahms, Rory McIlroy, Tiger Woods, like those guys were the ones.
Yeah,
that
it comes
missed
down to
out.
like a half a dozen players, honestly, maybe less than 10.
Yeah.
So
I won't pretend to know it all, but it's a very wild thing. Like the Department of regulators get involved. Like is there be a monopoly on golf? It's like it's just so bizarre. It's like wild what is happening from like the business side of professional golf.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, it was on the All In podcast, and they talk about strictly business and politics.
Yeah. It's crazy.
So even though I think it was Chamath that said golf is an antiquated sport, and he didn't want to talk about it.
I mean, at the end of the day, it just sounds like, from, everything I've heard and stuff like that. It's like the PGA Tour just, the live had them, the Saudis kind of had them by the balls. Like they saw no winning this war against them. If it's a war of attrition, like the PGA Tour wasn't going to stand a chance. So they kind of folded when they probably should have folded a couple of years ago, and this whole crazy disruption wouldn't have happened. But
yeah, I mean,
who knows?
Among other things, I'm here for the change. I'm still thinking that it's going to be better for the long run. I think that it's going to be it's going to be a little tumultuous for a while, but if it brings on the change that needed to happen, because the PGA was so old school about everything and going downhill anyway, so be it.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm the PGA Tour fan, so I didn't really see it going downhill. I thought it was on the way back up, and
because of live.
No, I think it was on its way back up. I think golf, as the sport of golf was trending in the right direction, but apparently, the guys wanted to get paid different, and I don't know. Then everyone has their thoughts about, how well they get paid when, compared to a Major League Baseball player, professional football player, or something like that. It's like they have a lot more, say in their daily life, I think, than a professional basketball, football, baseball player does. They're on a team, they have mandatory this, mandatory that. They have a lot more obligations than a professional golfer can kind of do a little more of what they want. They still have obligations, but I don't know. It's all just very fascinating what we're seeing happen.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to continuing to read up on it, but also then the U.S. Open is this week. So.
Oh yeah, well next week.
That's more. Yes, next week.
So it's Sunday, so it's coming up in a couple days. Yeah,
they're traveling tomorrow.
Yeah.
So
yeah, cool stuff. And since we'll be a golf podcast today, very golfy.
We wanted to go golfy today.
I want to go golfing today, hopefully.
And by golfy, we mean golf fitness, really. And we're going to answer the question of how do you fix your swing?
Yeah, so I think this is probably going to be one of our most popular things because as a golf fitness coach, people think that I can fix their swing, and there are things I do know that can fix your swing. And we're going to talk about some of those things today.
Yeah, well, I think it's important to talk about that. I mean, off the bat, you are not a swing coach.
I am not a swing coach. So everything I'm going to say today is about how the body moves and how it could potentially make your swing better if you fix your body. But I would still recommend, if you are having some serious swing issues, that you go see a swing coach.
Yeah.
And I'm only going to I'm going to stick as close as I can to things I absolutely know, as opposed to like dabbling into some of the things I think I know about the golf swing.
Yeah, that sounds good.
And I'm going to do my best to not blend the two because I don't know where it all begins and ends for me sometimes, because there are things I do know and there are things I think I might know to help you swing the golf club better and hit the ball how you want. So,
well, yeah, we pride ourselves on that. We're not bullshitting anybody. We're not talking about things that we don't feel comfortable talking about.
No, I won't be able to tell you like position one of your swing and the takeaway should look like this and the club face at impact,
and the angle of your wrist at the top of the swing. And okay, so let's go into what we do know and let's talk about it. So perhaps we should unpack maybe first like the big problems in the swing and then maybe dive into the gym solutions for each of those.
Okay, let's kind of talk about from like a basic standpoint of like when you address the ball.
Yeah.
And to actually how when you move more dynamically into the swing and how that affects you.
Okay,
and how we can start like from posture and work our way into everything else.
Okay, let's start there.
So from like your static posture, if you grab your club and stand there, you are going to address the ball in a certain way. You're going to have a certain posture about you, right? Like we want to look and see like some nice like straight lines and things like that, right? So like as you're standing there holding the club, we don't want to see like your upper body rounded too much or like your lower back rounded. And so those are called like C posture and S posture. So let's just start there. So like C posture from the top, if you grab your club, you're going to be very like arched over. You see this kind of with older guys. Maybe you've spent a lot of time like maybe, at a desk or driving or something where you are just somewhat leaned forward and you're like pecs and your pecs are tight, your upper back is weak. So you're just rounded. So now you think about when you're rounded, what's going to happen here? You're going to have trouble rotating, right? Because your spine is not neutral. It's flexed forward, your upper back. So you're going to have trouble rotating, especially through your thoracic spine. So that's a posture issue. And then you can have a similar issue lower down in your lower back and your lumbar spine. And then again, you're going to be putting excess pressure on your lower back and now your hips aren't going to be able to turn. So either one of those posture issues is going to limit your ability to rotate. So that's a big issue in your swing. So there's like just first thing you can look at without doing anything. Take a picture of yourself, stand in front of a mirror and see what you look like. And if you don't have any straight lines, if you see a lot of roundness happening, those are going to be some of your limitations.
Okay, cool. And again, this is important to start here because this is like your foundation. So if you start breaking down something else further down the kinetic chain,
right,
we're jumping ahead.
Yep. And just like in fitness, right? Like just everything we do, like when you set up to the deadlift, when you set up to do a squat, when you grab the barbell to do a bench press, or if you're doing a split stance cable rotation for, more everything needs to be in a certain posture and a certain setup first before you do anything, because obviously it's going to affect everything you do from there.
Okay. All right. So where do we work from there?
Is that a good place to start?
Yeah, that's good.
All right. So that is the static posture, right? Now we're going to start. Now the next thing you got to look at is when you start moving. So a few things that let me back up, and like a few things that you can do to help correct some of those things that we just talked about, right? Like you can strengthen up your upper back. You can stretch out your pecs, and like, you know, and I'm always a fan of more like dynamic movements. So don't think just like I'm going to go grab a wall and I'm going to stretch. So anything I talk about today, I don't necessarily normally mean grab something and stretch and hold. It's going to be like do like a book opener or something like that. Like really, and I got all these videos on YouTube. It's like a book opener that'll open up your chest. If you're tight through your hips, or the low back is in that, you know, that S posture that we're talking about, like arch forward. You can do things like dead bugs to really strengthen up your core. You can do planks. You could also do, you know, any kind of hip mobility, like a hip airplane. All that kind of stuff will help you rotate and strengthen your core. So now once we get into the swing itself, so the most common thing I think that you will see in a golfer is the ability to not disassociate, right? So they can't rotate their torso or they can't rotate their hips independently of each other.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Yep.
So the body moves all together. And we were driving by the driving range earlier. I was like, man, look at all these guys with their arm swings, right? Because they don't know how to use their lower body.
Yes.
So several things are going to happen if you cannot do that. So the two most common swing faults that start with those two things are going to be like loss of posture and early extension. So here we are. We were just talking about, and these two are very related. So like you had your posture that we started with, right? We're talking about C posture and S posture, but you want to be like in a neutral, normal posture. And you want to keep those similar lines throughout your swing, right? So as you're coming through and you're going to your backswing, and then as you're coming through into your downswing, typically what a lot of people do is they stand up, and you would call that loss of posture, right? So when you stand up, you do a variety of things to make sure that your club still makes contact with the golf ball, right? Like maybe you throw your hands at it, or you do something. If you have any kind of hand-eye coordination, you're still going to make the club hit the ball, but you're going to do it without any power, any consistency, proper club path. All this kind of shit's going to happen, right? Mm-hmm. So corrections for that to help you stay in posture is typically strength, right? So we want to be strong in like a squat, a deadlift, because you will be able to be more comfortable and stronger and just feel better overall in that position and be able to stay in that position longer, right? Like, you know, if you used to hip hinging and staying in a deadlift or something like that, you can stay in that position longer.
Okay, so, and that's important, because especially as you go throughout your round and you've been playing for 3.5 hours, 16, 17, 18 holes,
you get tired. Right.
Yeah.
So being strong, and all, you know, the golf swing is a lot about mobility too. So that plays a part of this. But making sure that you are staying in posture and doing things like an overhead squat, seeing how that looks for you. Like that's a good assessment for these two things. If you can't do an overhead squat well, like because you have like maybe limited ankles or tight hips or something like that, that's going to be a good indicator of whether or not you can stay in posture throughout your golf swing.
Okay.
So far, so good.
Yep.
Is this like heading down the right way? Like, are we like the lay person? We like kind of understanding like where we're going with the golf thing.
It makes sense. Yeah, I think it's good.
Makes sense to you and a squat.
He's sitting here like listening very intently. Yeah.
And I got my little cheat sheet here of like common swing characteristics that I'm just going to kind of go through and talk about what they look like and then how we kind of address those in the gym.
Yeah.
All right. So next up is going to be over the top. So over the top for you golfers is where when you're bringing the club back, you create a swing plane, and then when you bring the club through on the downswing, you don't want to be over that swing plane.
Okay.
So you want to bring the club in shallow, and you don't want to like start with your arms and come over the top and like across the ball. So like from out to in. That's it. And then depending on how your club face looks. So if your club face is open, you're going to hit a big old slice, which have you ever hit one of those? I have. I've hit tons of them.
I know the whole time you're looking at me and you're like, because this is what you do. I can tell in your eyes. Like earlier when you were talking about early extensions and standing up and hand-eye coordination, you're like so badly you want to be like, you know how you do. That's cute because nobody else knows what I do. But yes, of course I know that I slice 100% of my balls. And yes, I've done that before.
100% of your balls.
98.9% I slice. I like to call it a draw. What's the one where it's supposed to go? Fade?
Little fade.
I like
baby. Actually, you know, like good players call it a baby fade.
I like to pretend that it's a baby fade in my mind. I'm like, look at me just curving my shit every time.
I mean, there are a lot of holes that would call for like a good shot like yours. You just got to start it on the right line and get it going in the right direction.
Baby fade. But anyway, yeah, I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Okay.
I'm sure everyone else is too, because there's a lot of people that slice on the golf course, like for sure.
Right. So a couple things here that I think that can help people with this is, you know, to shallow out the club. So you're going to need good like shoulder mobility to be able to like drop the club down, and they call it the slot. So like getting it onto the right like path and the right plane, they call it the slot. So getting it down there, you want to have good shoulder mobility and scapular stability, right? So just overall like healthy shoulders, we could say. They move well and they're stable.
Yeah.
So we'll just call them healthy shoulders. Then it comes back to the ability to disassociate again, because that means you're just being like overly dominant with your upper body.
Yeah.
So if you don't have that good turn in your low body, then you're going to make a very like arm heavy swing again. So that all kind of comes from a variety of things. Like you can have poor disassociation from lack of core control, right? Like if your core is not stable, so doing things like farmer's carries, suitcase carries, dead bugs, pal off presses, and stuff like that. Just any kind of core stability training will help you kind of separate the upper and lower body, because it's kind of like the bisection. What could I say? Like the meeting point of the two, right? So if you have a core, like if you have a strong core in the middle, you can kind of above and below it, you can kind of move them better. And then it's still going to come down to, lower body strength, hip rotation, and then the healthy shoulders again to get you to turn separate from each other to get that into better positioning.
Yeah.
So that'll help you from coming over the top. So these are the most common ones. Like you got your early extension, loss of posture, and over the top are like by far like the most common things that people do.
And again, people will know what they do, because we're talking like we assume everyone's done the TrackMan before, but this is the only way to really know, unless of course you have somebody video you and kind of tell you what it is that you're doing, right?
Yeah, and then you need to know, like, so it's always tough, and that's why it's always good to get a coach. I mean,
well, this is again what we do complements when someone's working with a swing coach, because sometimes, and we can attest to this because we've both done lessons, but me specifically, when someone's telling me do X and it's like, I fucking cannot.
Right.
I get what you're saying, but I literally like can't, whether it's a limitation or even like some muscle memory shit or whatever, or something's overcompensating, and all of those things that you just said. It's like, shit, like I need somebody to help me learn how to work on those things, because the swing coach is sitting here telling me to do X, but I can't do it. And so that's again where it's helpful, but also having that swing coach, because you would have never gotten to know where your faults are or what your video looks like, or the seeing your club path on a TrackMan over and over and over and over again. Not even necessarily needing to understand. I don't even think you have to know every angle and every number. Sometimes it's just the visual and the being able to draw the path itself and see kind of like what you're doing.
Right. And I mean, I used to talk to one of my clients back in Austin, Brett. He's a construction guy, like kind of like, architect kind of guy, right? And I'd tell him, it doesn't take he would send me a video of someone doing like a squat or something like that. He's like, man, that doesn't look right. I was like, it doesn't take an expert to see that like something doesn't look quite right? Like, I can go look at a building with him, and if like a wall is like slanted, I'd be like, that wall looks like shit. Like it doesn't, you can just look at your swing and be like, hey, something like, I'm doing something like weird here, or like that posture looks wrong. Like I should not be that hunched over. Right. And maybe you never would notice that until you look at it.
Yeah.
And you don't need to be, Butch Harmon.
No.
To notice that.
Totally.
So you just need to take a look at yourself sometimes.
100%. It's so valuable, and in your movements too, in the gym. But like obviously for golf, I think I can't imagine learning golf without seeing some visuals of your swing, at least doing checkpoints once in a while.
Right. And like what's funny is and that kind of leads into like one of the next issues that I have like written down here, is when you look at a professional golfer swing and the way they can get into certain positions, your brain is immediately going to be like, hey, like let me figure out how to get the club where Phil Mickelson does, or John Daly. Like if they were the ones that you sat there and watched, like maybe you mentally align with them somehow, or maybe you have a body built like John Daly's or something, I don't know, and you're like, oh, I can swing like that, like let me go try that. And then in your brain you're like, okay, he gets the club way up here, at the top of his backswing, John Daly's club's pointing at the ground over his head, and he's way back here, so I need to do that. well, you're not built. You don't have his ability, right?
Right.
So like you're gonna do that in some really weird way, most likely. You're probably not just naturally gonna do that.
Right.
Actually, I would bet you won't. But you know, if that is the visual you have in your brain, you're gonna figure out a way to get there, and you might hurt yourself. So the way you would get there, like a John Daly swing, and what they would call is a reverse spine angle. So it's like you would get in this crazy position, and think about if you're a right-handed player, you're getting way over to your left side at the top of your backswing. You're leaning back even a little bit, and your head's going to the left, right, left of your belt buckle. And now you'd be like in reverse spine angle. And that is the number one cause of low back pain, because now you've got to whip yourself back around and get into the exact opposite position. So as a golfer, that would be, or as like, you know, you're talking, that would be lumbar extension and left side bend. And then you would go into immediate forward flexion and right side bend. And that would just jam up your back essentially.
Yep.
So you gotta be really careful of that. It's also called, a lot of people call that like a reverse pivot, because you kind of would just stay on your left side and not like shift your weight from your left to your right side and get into your hips as much. But again, like that is a swing fault, and that could be something like you lack balance, right? So like you avoid, and like the next couple of ones could be all because of this, because like maybe you had something happen to your right side and you don't have balance, or you're not very stable on that right leg, or that right hip can't rotate or something like that. Like, so you're going to stay all on this one side and create these crazy different looking swings because you avoid one side altogether. And it could be the same thing, you know, if your left leg, right, you would sway or slide, or you would hang back as opposed to like reverse spine angle, or you know, there's so many different things that would happen because of this. But that's why it's really good to check your balance and also to do unilateral movements.
Yeah.
So always incorporating in like single arm, single leg movements. You know, obviously like these issues I'm talking about are more probably lower body related, but you still need to add in single sided, an element of balance. I mean, a split stance is not necessarily a way to balance, because you're still getting multiple points of contact with the ground. And you're getting like the forward and lateral like stability when you're in a split stance. So we're talking like getting on one leg and doing some things. And I'm not talking about getting on a goofy ass Bosu ball, just doing some stuff on one leg, maybe just standing there in your golf posture. Maybe doing that as you rotate will help you get more stability in each leg and give you more confidence in those sides, right? Because that's something that also creates a loss of club head speed in general. Because if you're unable as a right-handed golfer, if you do not feel comfortable getting into like your left side, you are going to lose club head speed. Because if you swing really hard and you are unstable on that left side, you might fall down.
Yep.
And so and your brain's really smart, right? So everyone's brain's really smart in this way of, well, I don't want to fall down and look like a jackass, so I'm just going to swing slower. You see it at Top Golf sometimes. Yeah. People fall. It's because they don't have enough balance and they're drunk.
Well,
so
we're not going to get into that on this podcast.
Won't get into that, but I'm just saying, like, so they've lost their balance, right? And instead of falling, you're just going to swing slower. Mm-hmm. Which swinging slow doesn't just mean you're going to lose distance, right? Well, it does mean you're going to lose distance, but you're also going to change how you swing. Your swing is just going to be different. Your sequencing, your consistency, all that kind of stuff is going to be different when you lose your balance.
Yep.
Or don't feel confident in that. So what else we got? So a few more characteristics are like, these all kind of have to do with your arms. So like, you know, you could release the ball, or you could do some kind of like casting or scooping, like where you're just kind of using just your hands and your arms and things like that. And then like a chicken wing or something like that. So again, then there's an element of like wrist mobility that you need in your golf swing. Like, it's really cool is like your wrist actually moves in like all these different ways. You know, flex, extend, ulnar, radial, deep, like all those kind of things, moves in all these different ways. It hinges, supination, pronation. Like if you kind of lack any of those, you're going to come up with some funky ways for your hands to get through the golf ball. So, you know, just wrist mobility. Again, like I'm going to keep talking about like doing carries and things, because like that'll help you like strengthen up your wrist, and it'll help them move in more ranges of motion, getting down the ground, stretching, and just even grabbing a club and kind of moving it around. And just get creative. Like, how many different ways can I move this club? Like if I was going to look at a wall or something, like how many different ways could I like paint? You know, how many different lines could I draw with like a club or something to just move my wrist in all these different ways? So obviously like those are just some of the big ones, like I pulled that from TPI right there. But when I'm out there playing, what I see the most is that people do not use their lower body. You agree?
100%.
Mainly men.
100%.
And it is just a very, very arm. I've seen guys like look like they lock their legs in place when they swing. And then I've had guys like, man, where do you get all that power from? Is it from your legs? I think it's because my legs are huge. So they're just like, oh, that must be the answer right there. Because I don't have that and you have that. So there's our difference right there. But you just don't see a lot of lower body action.
Right.
One of the number one ways that people talk about hurting themselves is low back pain. And we know that one of the best ways you can eliminate low back pain is more hip mobility, core, and glute strength.
Yep.
So Tiger Woods famously said, like, after he hurt his back one time, is like, my glutes weren't firing today, and he had a bad day. And people are like, what the hell's wrong with him? What's he talking about his glutes firing? He was out there playing golf. What is he doing? But that is a big part of your swing. So getting that lower body moving, strong core are all things that go into a good training program. And those are simply doing things like squats and deadlifts, rows and presses, and then getting down the ground and mobilizing your hips and bracing your core.
I love it. So,
I think that's probably as deep as I can go. Like I probably dove in just a little bit further on a couple of those things than I got comfortable with. Like, some of the stuff I'm talking about, like getting on swing planes. If you watch my swing, I'm not on plane. So that's about as far as I can take some of that stuff. But just know that like a golf fitness program is designed to make your body better. That can in turn make your golf swing better if you learn how to like practice and put it together.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, everyone should still do some kind of fitness program.
Yeah.
And it will make your body better. Whether you even realize it or not, like I'll be straight up, like my handicap has been dropping lately, and I just get out there and play and I train in the gym. And my body feels strong, I feel powerful, and I just feel more mobile when I train how I'm supposed to for golf in the gym, that I can go out there and execute and hit shots better because my body is more capable.
Yeah.
And it allows it to get into better positions in the backswing. Position 1 through 10 of the swing are better because of what I do in the gym. And I don't ever and I should go to the driving range and get the drills and do the things and like work on my club path and work on my impact and, work on my starting lines and all this kind of stuff. I should do that more often, but I don't. However, because of the time I spend in the gym, my game gets better anyways.
Yes. And you play a lot of golf.
Yeah, no, I just get better by playing.
Yeah, no, I think, like you said, and like we said earlier, just even about watching yourself, the body awareness that being in the gym creates, even for people like us who are in the gym a lot and have been in fitness for a really long time, you still like are aware of it when you're on the course.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like you might feel something where you're like, I'm not firing my legs today because I'm fatigued or for whatever reason, or again, like for me, it's still like a lot of muscle memory stuff. So I'm just like constantly still having to, it's in the front of the brain or whatever instead of the subconscious, but still like, because you work on that stuff in the gym, it's like, and because I know even in the gym forever, it took me forever to learn how to fire my glutes and get out of like the runner's lower body situation that I've had for a long time. But it's like getting people to understand what their hip hinge looks like, what that actually feels like because like if you're saying, oh, get your hips back more, I'm like, oh yeah, my hamstrings like weren't on at all. Like, and you don't know that stuff unless you're like in the gym practicing that stuff, like literally like practicing it, because it's, gym is like going to practice. It's the same thing.
Absolutely. And if you think about what it feels like when you're holding dumbbells in your hands and you're about to do a deadlift or you're about to do a lateral lunge or a squat or a press or whatever it is, you've got to find your balance first. So you got to find your feet. Yep. You got to be in a stable position. You need to do that when you hit the golf ball.
Yes.
You need to load into your hips when you do a deadlift. You need to do that when you hit the golf ball. I mean, when I had that coach at 5-Iron in DC, she knew fitness pretty well. And so she was like explaining to me she's like, here, I'm going to put this in terms you'll understand. She was like, I want you to deadlift a little bit more in this part of your swing or something like that. Or she'd be like, now press off this leg and, like give me like a kettlebell swing. She was just like using it as much as she could to make sense.
She was great. She had worked with CrossFitters a lot is what she had told me.
Yeah.
So, but it helped. It was helpful. Yeah.
So she knew okay, he's going to understand this and how this is supposed to feel.
Yeah.
So you think about that, you take that from the gym into the course and it just carries right over.
Yeah.
Like, you know how it feels to like be, you know what it feels like, and for better or for worse, right? Like when you do a squat and you feel like you're on your toes, you realize that doesn't feel right, and that's you're off balance, and you're not as powerful, and it just doesn't feel correct because it's not. And then so you take that to the golf course, and you're like, okay, well, I don't want to be on my toes when I'm about to hit this ball, unless you're Justin Thomas. But like you just carry that over. It makes sense. Your body is essentially practicing and training. That's why it's called training, for activities you're going to do somewhere else.
Yes.
And for our example, it's the golf course.
Yeah, no, that's super helpful. So hopefully, there's some good takeaways there. But I guess for people too that want something tactical to work on as far as our programs go, the mobility program is where it's at to assess.
Yeah, we have a full
correct.
assessment like in it. And I even, in the assessments, I break down like, if you miss this assessment, like the overhead squat or something like that, you're likely to have like early extension or loss of posture. And, I'm not paired up with a swing coach yet, but, you can just take that information that you're going to get from the mobility program, type it into the YouTube search, and find some drills that, and there's millions of drills, millions of pieces of tools out there. And I've always just found the one that makes sense to me. Usually it's like a pretty basic one.
Yeah.
And I take that one out to the course. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm going to try that one.
Yep.
I wouldn't pick like 7.
No.
Find one. Maybe there's a guy you like out there. Find their video. Okay, cool. This helps with early extension because of my poor overhead squat test that Cody had me do in that mobility program. Here's how I'm going to fix here's how I'm going to fix the things that came up in my overhead squat. I'm going to fix those in the gym. I'm going to take this drill out to the course. And there you go.
Yeah. Awesome. So we can find that on CodyWescottGolf.com.
Or on the Instagram.
On the Instagrams in your link tree at Cody Wescott Golf. Super easy to find our stuff. And then, of course, the Cody Wescott Golf YouTube channel. We literally have hundreds, if not thousands at this point, of
coming up on 1,000
of movement videos.
Oh, there's like 900 published. I got like another couple hundred that are like sitting in there unpublished. So I could.
Yeah,
there's tons of videos.
By the time this is out, that dissociation drill video will be out as well, which you talked about at the beginning of this episode. So I think that'll be really helpful for folks too. So, well, great. Well, with that, hopefully somebody learned something. I did. I learned something on this episode for sure. I'm still always learning a lot about the golfs. But yeah, I guess we'll catch everybody on the flip side.
Cool. Thanks.
Thank you.